The night was calm, the kind of silence only wide-open land can hold. But that peace didn't last long. Red and blue lights sliced through the darkness, washing my ranch in uneasy color. The gravel under the patrol cars crunched louder than it should have, like the sound of trouble arriving. I stepped out onto the porch, coffee mug still warm in my hand, heart steady but curious. 3 police cruisers sat in my driveway, lights flashing, engines humming low. The lead officer approached, one hand resting near his belt, not threatening but ready. "Sir," he said evenly, "we got a 911 call about a trespasser on this property. We'll need to see some ID, a trespasser." On my own land, I kept my tone calm. "Sure, officer. I'm Marcus Chen, owner of this ranch. Mind telling me who called?" He flipped open a small notepad, glancing at a name that made my stomach tighten, not with fear, but with irony. The caller identified herself as Karen Whitfield, president of the Willowbrook Homeowners Association. I couldn't help the faint smile tugging at my lips. Of course, Karen Whitfield and the self-appointed. Queen of the HOA who'd been trying to rule land, she didn't even own what she didn't. No, not yet, was that the trespasser she thought she was reporting wasn't a stranger at all. She had just called the cops on her own company's vice president. But let me start at the beginning. Before we dive in, let me know where you're listening from today. The night started like any other, quiet, calm, and steady. My ranch sat under a wide Texas sky, the kind that makes you forget chaos exists anywhere else. I just poured myself a mug of coffee and stepped onto the porch when I saw the flashing lights. Red and blue reflections danced off the barn and stretched across the fields. It took me a second to realize there were 3 patrol cars parked at the end of my gravel driveway. Their sirens were off, but their presence felt loud, like trouble had decided to visit uninvited. I set my coffee down, walked forward slowly, boots crunching on gravel. One of the officers, tall, steady-looking guy, stepped out from his car. His hand rested on his belt near his holster, but not quite. It was the kind of posture that said, "We're calm but ready." "Evening, sir," he said. "We got a call about suspicious activity and possible trespassing on this property. Mind showing some ID?" I blinked, then nodded. "Sure thing, officer. My name's Marcus Chen. I own this ranch. Been here 6 months. What's this about?" He checked his notepad, reading something. Caller's name is Karen Whitfield, president of the Willowbrook HOA. Said someone's been occupying the property without authorization. That name hit me like a bad joke I'd already heard too many times. I exhaled through a small laugh. "Karen Whitfield." Of course, the officer raised an eyebrow. "You know her?" "Oh, I know her," I said. "She just doesn't really know me." It all started on a Sunday morning 2 weeks before that night. I was halfway through breakfast when I heard a hard knock at the door. Not polite, not hesitant. The kind of knock that says, "You're already in trouble." When I opened it, there she was. Early 50s, perfectly ironed blazer, and that signature haircut that screams, "I'm in charge here." She had a clipboard tucked under one arm like a sheriff holding her badge. "I'm Karen Whitfield," she said before I could even say hello. "President of the Willowbrook Homeowners Association. We need to talk about your violations." "Violations?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Ma'am, this property isn't part of any HOA." Her lips tightened like she'd just bitten a lemon. "That's where you're mistaken. The Willowbrook HOA recently expanded our jurisdiction. All properties within a 1-mile radius are now under our oversight. You'll need to register immediately and bring your property up to code." I had to bite back a laugh. "That's not how HOAs work, ma'am. You can't just extend your rule because you feel like it." She thrust a stack of papers toward me. "These are your violations. Fence color's wrong, barn isn't approved, and your livestock," she paused for dramatic effect, "are unregistered. I didn't take the papers." "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're on private property, and for the record, you have no authority here." Her face turned red. "We'll see about that. I know people, important people. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." When she stormed off, I stood there for a moment, staring after her, half expecting her to come back for round 2. Instead, I decided to do what any logical person would. I installed cameras. A lot of them. High definition, night vision, audio recording, the works. Something in my gut told me that woman wasn't finished with me, and boy was I right. The harassment started almost immediately. Every morning, I'd find a new fake violation notice taped to my gate, each one more ridiculous than the last. One said my mailbox was improperly positioned. Another accused me of operating a commercial farm because I sold 24 eggs to a neighbor. The letters kept coming. Threats of fines, warnings, even fake legal letters with her signature at the bottom. Then, one morning I caught her on camera, inside my fence line, taking photos of my horses. "Ma'am, you're trespassing," I called out, keeping my voice even while the camera above the barn recorded everything. She turned, smug as ever. "These horses aren't registered with the HOA Livestock Committee," she said. "That's a $500 fine per animal per day." I nearly laughed. "There is no HOA Livestock Committee here, Karen. You need to leave, now," she sneered. "You go ahead and call the police. Sheriff Thompson's my brother-in-law. I didn't call, not yet. I just documented everything. Every fake notice, every voicemail, every lie. 'Cause what Karen didn't know was that I wasn't just some random guy who bought a ranch. I was the senior vice president of development for Pinnacle Property Group, the company that actually managed Willowbrook's HOA. So while she was out here trying to intimidate me, she was technically harassing her own corporate boss. And that's how we got to this night. 3 squad cars in my driveway and Karen's name on a police report. The officers ran my ID, verified ownership, and came back looking a little embarrassed. "Mr. Chen, looks like you're the legal owner here. Sorry for the confusion. We'll need to have a word with Ms. Whitfield about filing a false report." I smiled slightly. "I think I can help with that." I opened my laptop and pulled up my security footage. The past 2 weeks of her trespassing, taking photos, planting fake notices, and even arguing with my camera. For 20 minutes, the officers watched in silence. When the last clip ended, one of them sighed. "Mr. Chen, would you like to press charges?" "I think I'll make a call first," I said. "There's a bigger issue here." I dialed a number I knew by heart. "Janet, it's Marcus. I need you and Richard from HR at my ranch, now. We've got a situation with one of our HOA board members." There was a pause on the line, then a sharp inhale. "Karen Whitfield?" Janet asked. "That's the one." "We'll be there in 30 minutes. Half an hour later, 2 cars rolled up my driveway. Janet stepped out first, sharp suit, calm demeanor. Behind her was Richard from HR, and to my surprise, in the backseat of Janet's car was Karen. They'd told her there was an urgent HOA meeting at my ranch. The look on her face when she saw the flashing patrol lights? Priceless. She stormed out, pointing at me. "What is he doing here? This man's been violating community standards." "Ms. Whitfield," Janet interrupted, voice cool as steel. "Are you aware that Mr. Chen is the senior vice president of Pinnacle Property Group?" The color drained from Karen's face. That's impossible," she stammered. "He's just some guy who bought land outside the community." Richard stepped forward. "Land completely outside your jurisdiction. You've been trespassing, harassing, and filing false reports against your own company executive." "Do you realize what you've done?" Karen's hands shook. "I was just doing my job." "The HOA board voted to expand authority." "No, they didn't," Janet cut in. "I've spoken to the other board members. You acted alone." "You abused your position," the officer stepped up. "Ms. Whitfield, filing a false report is a criminal offense. You'll be cited for harassment and false reporting." Karen's bravado crumbled. "You can't do this." "My brother-in-law is retired," the officer said flatly. Janet folded her arms. "Effective immediately, you're removed from your position as HOA president. Pinnacle Property Group is terminating all contracts with you." Karen's clipboard slipped from her hand and hit the dirt. Her power and her composure shattered in the same second. After the officers took her statement, the cars rolled away and silence returned to my ranch. I stood on my porch again, this time with cold coffee and a sense of peace that felt earned. My horses grazed quietly in the distance, blissfully unaware they'd been at the center of a power war. 3 weeks later, 2 letters arrived in the mail. The first, from the district attorney, Karen had pled no contest to filing a false report and harassment. Her sentence, 6 months probation, 100 hours of community service, and over $13,000 in combined fines and restitution. The second letter came from the new Willowbrook HOA board, a formal apology. They'd uncovered that Karen had been secretly pocketing HOA funds, creating fake fines, and embezzling nearly $50,000 over the years. Justice had a funny way of working itself out. That night, I watched the sun dip behind the hills, the same peace returning that had been missing for weeks. The wind was soft, the fields were quiet, and I realized sometimes you don't need to fight loud battles. You just need to be patient and let the truth do its work. Karen thought she could use fear to control people, but in the end, fear was what destroyed her. She once ruled the neighborhood with arrogance. Now the only thing left under her control was the community service schedule.